Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, good morning, depending on your location, and welcome to Faith, Lies, and Confusion. I am your host, Godless Reggie, and this is NJ. How are you today, NJ?
Hi, I am fabulous. I hope everybody else is also.
Good, good. I'm doing good as well. Today is an interesting topic that I've been hearing about probably for about a year now. Actually, never heard of it previous to me joining TikTok and hearing people's lives. And the subject is Zoroastrianism. It's a religion that, if I'm not mistaken, comes out of the Iraq area. Um, Now that I did a little bit of research on it last night, maybe about 30 minutes worth, just watched a few videos. I see a lot of similarities in it to Christianity. What about you? Do you know anything about it, NJ?
Not until you mentioned it to me when you decided on this topic had I ever heard it. I didn't even know how to pronounce it until you said it to me today. Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism. Okay. Yeah, never heard of it until you mentioned it. And I'm glad you did because now I understand where they are getting some of these mental gymnastics that they are going through in this relevant time of 2025.
You're 100% right on that, especially on that last part. That mental gymnastics is where they're getting it from. But the crazy thing about it is they don't know that's where they're getting it from. They don't know that shit. Listen, I didn't even know it. Like, I always wondered, like, where the fuck did this free will shit come from? Like, whoever made that need their ass beat? Well, we're gonna have to go back quite some time to figure that out, right? We're talking about thousands of years, way before BC, right? Well, in the BC era, I guess there's no such thing as before BC, but yeah, it definitely gives some interesting light on the free will aspect, and as you mentioned offline, the yin and yang aspect. Um, in layman's terms, the heaven and hell, the good, the bad, the negative energy, the positive energy, blah blah blah. That's basically where they got it from. They may not have used that exact terminology, but that's what it means. I'm gonna do a little bit of reading on this. I'll go to Wikipedia first. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so what is Zoroastrianism? Zoroastrianism is an Iranian religion centered on the Avesta and the teachings of Zarathustra Spitama, who is commonly referred to by the name Zoroaster, which is they have a Greek terminology, which I'm not going to try to stumble through it, but it's very similar to Zoroastrus. Among the world's oldest organized faiths, it adherents exalt an uncreated, benevolent, and all-wise deity known as Ahura Mazda, who is held as the supreme being of the universe. Opposed to Ahura Mazda is Angra Mainyu, who is personified as a destructive spirit and the adversary of all things that are good. As such, the Zoroastrian religion combines a dualistic cosmology of good and evil with an eschatological outlook predicating the ultimate triumph of Ahura Mazda over evil. Opinions vary among scholars as to whether Zoroastrianism is monotheistic, polytheistic, or henotheistic, or a combination of all three. Zoroastrianism shaped Iranian culture and history, while scholars differ on whether it significantly influenced ancient Western philosophy and the Abrahamic religions or gradually reconciled with other religions and traditions such as Christianity and Islam. Originating from Zoroaster's reforms of the ancient Iranian religion, Zoroastrianism began during the Avestan period, possibly as early as the second millennial BCE, but was first recorded in the 6th century BCE. For the following millennium, it was the official religion of successive Iranian polites, beginning with the Medine Empire, which formalized and institutionalized many of the tenets and rituals, and ending with the Sasanian Empire, which revitalized the faiths and standardized its teachings. In the 7th century CE, the rise of Islam and the ensuing Muslim conquest of Iran marked the beginning of the decline of Zoroastrianism. The persecution of Zoroastrians by the early Muslims and the nascent, the nascent Rashidun Caliphate prompted much of the community to migrate to the Indian subcontinent, where they granted asylum and became the progenitors of today's Parsis. Once numbering in the millions, the world's total Zoroastrian population is estimated to comprise between 100,000 and 200,000 people as of 2004. Most Zoroastrians reside in either India, in Iran, or North America. The region is thought to be, declining due to restrictions on conversion, strict entomology, and low birth rates. Okay.
What? Why is the decline always at the end broken down to low birth rates?
Yeah, that is it is a common trend between any religious sects, especially when we're
Why?
talking from that area, from all Middle Eastern religions. That's a common thing. I would have said previous to me reading about this, all Abrahamic religions, but I'm gonna go ahead and say all Middle Eastern religions for sure.
Right. Because there's keywords, and this is why I always am put out with this thing that they do with marketing, where they take words and they say that nobody can use them except for this company, like let's say Mazda, because I'm reading here, and Mazda is a part of this inept religion from way back when. So how does Mazda get to copyright the word Mazda? That's interesting. That's interesting. And then my other favorite thing is they have this word as one of their key beliefs. I believe it's pronounced Aja, but I'm not sure. I'm only saying it's pronounced that way because I chose it as a name for one of my children. So it says truth and order, living a life aligned with truth, righteousness, and cosmic order. Free will. Humans have the responsibility to choose between good and evil. This is my favorite part. Anybody care for a good bonfire? Fire worship. Fire is a symbol of purity and the divine, often central in Zoroastrian temples. Anybody burn a good witch lately? This would be the religion for it. They like a good fire temple. Just saying.
Thought about it like that. Um, but you're absolutely right. When I was reading it about it last night, and they were talking about making fire impure, I'm like, what do you mean? How can you make a fire impure? But I'm gonna play a video so they can
Stick a
explain
witch
it.
in it. Stick a witch in it, and now the fire is unpure. That's how you make a fire unpure. You stick a witch in it.
But I think if they would have had that same logic, later on, during the medieval periods, as we call it, I think that maybe a lot of that stuff wouldn't have happened. What you think?
Never underestimate the plan. If you have to get an idea stuck in a whole bunch of people's heads in a short period of time, yeah, they went about it perfectly. I don't think it would have changed the thing. I really don't. I really don't.
It's weird. I mean, because I know that when it comes to burning witches and things like that, and we're getting into a different religion at this point, I know that that's more of just blaming stuff on women, as they
We are
always do.
not done the lesson today, so I'm not going to agree with you that that's a different religion. I'm not going to
I
agree
mean,
with you. Let's get to the
I mean,
end. Let's get to the end of the study, and then you can tell me if that's a different religion with the burning of the witches.
technically, because obviously, well, I'm not gonna say obviously because we haven't gotten into it yet. It's only at the 10-minute mark of this video. Um, we know that they got a lot of their ideas from this religion. So technically, I'm going to agree with you. You can't say that it's a different religion, especially if you look at it from a Christian point of view, right? You can't tell a Christian that their religion is different than Judaism. And if you do, right then and there, they should question it because it's the same God. You're taking from their shit and then adding to it. You can't go back and then tell them that what they said is wrong, because if what they said is wrong, then what you're preaching and prophesizing is wrong as well. So I get what you're saying, but my thing is, if they really kept that same standard as we know from the outside looking in about the fire being impure and things like that, wouldn't a human kind of make that impure?
That's the only way my brain can figure it out. And if somebody else's brain works different, invite them to the conversation.
Right, because that part don't make sense to me. But this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play a video. That way, I'm gonna let a person, again, like I was speaking about last week, I'll let it speak from the horse's mouth. They can explain it better than me and you can. Give me 1 second. Well, I'm hoping they can anyway.
How long is the video? Can I squeeze in a cigarette?
Oh yeah, definitely. 2 of them if you need to.
The course of human history by influencing Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Greek. Today, it only has a fraction of the millions of followers it once had. So, what is Zoroastrianism? What do Zoroastrians believe? And where do others fit into all of this? Well, let's find out. Zoroastrianism was born in ancient Iran at least 3,500 years ago. It all began around 1,500 BCE, give or take a few centuries, with the prophet Zarathustra, or
taxes was waiting.
Zarathustra, or Zoroaster, as the ancient Greeks called him, and so English speakers do too. While we call the religion Zoroastrianism, actual Zoroastrians tend to call it Mazdayazna, meaning worshipper of Mazda. No, not that Mazda, but it actually was named after the Mazda that I'm going to explain shortly. Zoroastrianism was the chief religion of Iran for around 1,000 years. Between the 6th century BCE and the 10th century CE, it was the state religion of 3 huge Iranian empires, the Achaemenid Empire of 300 fame, along with the Parthian and Sasanian empires. Back then, the priests of Zoroastrianism were known as magi. The ancient Greeks thought these magi had secret magical knowledge since they understood complex astronomy. This led to the English words magic, mage, and magician. The magi would even show up in the Bible. According to the Gospel of Matthew, 3 Zoroastrian magi came to visit the baby Jesus. These 3 wise men, as they are known in English, are still celebrated by Christians around the world on January 6th. Eventually, the Sasanian Empire would fall to the Muslim Arabs during their invasion of Iran in the 7th century CE, which started the decline and persecution of Zoroastrian in Iran. Following this, in the 10th century, some Iranian Zoroastrians fled to India, forming the Parsi community, named after where they came from, which Indians called Persia. This once refugee community now forms the largest group of Zoroastrians anywhere on earth, and they've settled in quite well. One of India's largest businesses, Tata Group, was founded by Zoroastrians, and Parsis played a massive role in winning Indian independence from Britain. Zoroastrians can now be found all over the world. Historically, they've emigrated to areas such as Singapore, Hong Kong, and parts of Africa, such as the island of Zanzibar, where Freddie Mercury's Parsi parents would later emigrate from to the UK. In the last 100 years, small Zoroastrian populations have moved to the UK, US, Australia, and Canada. Today, there are about 200,000 Zoroastrians left. About 60,000 live in India, while the second largest group, about 25,000, lives in Iran. With a religion being called Zoroastrianism, I think maybe it's about time we spoke about Zoroaster. We don't know much about Zoroaster's life. We can't even pinpoint when he lived. The Greeks thought he lived 6,000 years before the death of Plato, so around 6,347 BCE-ish, while modern historians place him somewhere around 1,700 to 1,000 BCE. During this time, the peoples of Iran believed in many different gods, some of which were similar to the gods of their ancient Hindu neighbors. What we do know is that Zoroaster was a priest of the pre-Zoroastrian religion of Iran, and that he was outraged by his society. Roving bands of drunken warriors would ravage the countryside. They pillaged, tortured, and slaughtered at will. The common people lived in constant fear and misery, while priests obsessed over obscure rituals and sacrifices that offered little guidance or hope to the suffering. Zoroaster couldn't stand this injustice. So, when he was 30 years old, Zoroaster went down to a river to fetch water for a ceremony. There, he received a vision from a being of pure light and goodness, Ahura Mazda, who revealed that they were the one true God. The truth of how the universe worked was revealed to Zoroaster, and he knew that it was now his divine mission to spread this truth to his fellow humans. So, what are the core beliefs of Zoroastrianism? Well, 1. Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. Zoroastrians worship one uncreated, eternal god known as Ahura Mazda, which means wise lord. Zoroaster describes Ahura Mazda as the lord of order, something completely good, loving, infinitely wise, and the creator of the world and all good things. Ahura Mazda is supported by 6 holy immortals known as the Amesha Spentas. These 6 holy immortals are normally compared to archangels in Christianity, if that helps you kind of figure out what their position is. Sometimes there is a 7th Spenta called Spenta Manu, but maybe he's also the Holy Spirit of Ahura Mazda. Sometimes Ahura Mazda also has a parent called Zurvan, who is time itself, but that's considered heresy at this point. Look, we don't have a lot of time to get into it. Honestly, it's a very old religion. There have been many different interpretations over the last 3,000 years. I'm really just simplifying and providing the most commonly accepted current beliefs. So keep that in mind, and as always, there's information in the description. Opposed to Ahura Mazda is Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit, and his evil minions known as Devas. Angra Mainyu is the complete polar opposite of Ahura Mazda. He is darkness, deceit, death, and decay.
Okay, so I just wanted to stop it there for a second. And the reason why I wanted to stop it there is because, boom, when I was watching it last night, the same exact video, there's the concept of the devil. Once I started studying religions and learning with Abrahamic religions, that's where I started at, right? Because I was raised Christian, as most people in the United States are. So once I started deconverting and started really studying Christianity, where its roots came from, Judaism, there was always a disconnect, right? I'm like, why do why do Christian people believe in the devil? Why do they believe in Jesus? Why do they believe in everything's all good versus everything is all bad with the devil? And Jewish people do not believe this. And they got their religion from them. And I had met this guy online through the atheist community. Well, I never actually met him, but he was a mutual. His name is Antonio. And he always would scream to me about Zoroastrianism, Zoroastrianism, Zoroastrianism. I had never heard that shit before in my life, previous to about a year ago. And he would always tell me that Christianity got a lot of its ideas from Zoroastrianism. Back to what I was originally saying. Last night, there it is. This is the devil. Those are demons, the shaitans, etc., etc., etc.
Anybody who did not believe the words that they were saying. And that's why I'm really tired of Socrates, and I'm tired of everybody who's read Socrates and studied Socrates and believes in the Greek philosophies, because they all every last Greek philosopher sat there and made shit up. They made it up. They were writing a really good story about people. Okay. I don't even know if these were people that they were writing about. They made up names and stories to go with whatever it is they were thinking at the time. And again, I'm going to ask, what was in that water? You go to get some water and you see some pure light, and the pure light talks to you. What was in the water? Was it frogs? Because, frogs, some of them have a sticky substance on them.
Mm-hmm.
If
Hallucinogen.
it gets in you, yes, that is a hallucinogen. So I'm wondering, where was this water source, and were there any frogs in it? Did you get bit by a bug while you was there? Was there a burning bush with some smoke coming off of it? Did you inhale? Because that could be weed. Was there mushrooms in
Yes,
this water that you
it
was
had to be
drinking?
mushrooms.
Because that can cause hallucinations also. I'm curious where these philosophers who are writing about these humans from 6,000 years before they were born. What is not making sense. It's
But
not making sense.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you just a little bit, and this is where I'm gonna disagree with you
Okay.
with your same exact logic, right? Now, I don't think that these people made these stories up. I think they just plagiarized them, right? Because okay, so you're taking stories from older religions, right? And you just remixing them and just adding shit to it. Right. Now I do agree with, y'all must have been smoking something to make up this bullshit, right? To write this, well, not make it up, to write this bullshit down, whoever the fuck made it up. But it's just another example of people being like, oh no, that's not true. But we're gonna take the same exact idea and we're gonna change it to this religion. And this is the true one religion. And if you don't believe in Jesus, there's no way to get to the Father. Blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? So it's strange to me.
It's supposed to be strange because it's all made up. None of it's real. There is no end to the never-ending story. The planet will still be here thousands of years from now, and provided that the internet lasts and all our data centers don't get burnt up, the data will be here thousands of years from now.
Listen,
Isn't that a scary thought?
saying Christianity or any Abrahamic religion is the one true religion, it's like saying MC Hammer is the one who made up the beat for "You Can't Touch This."
Ooh, ooh. Don't you get the music industry started. Don't you get them started. That whole industry is original. That whole industry is original.
If religion was like how the music industry is, Christianity would face the most lawsuits of all fucking time for copyright infringement.
Ooh. Look, Mazda should be suing right now because copyright infringement.
Right, by that same logic, yeah, you're right. Let me play the rest of this video. This is one part that's like towards the end that I really want everyone to see. That like the last 2 minutes of the video pretty much sums it all up.
Okay, he is a corrupting parasite seeking to destroy Ahura Mazda's creation and is responsible for all negative things in the world. Ahura Mazda is light and Ramanyu is darkness. Ahura Mazda is the creator and Ramanyu the destroyer. Ahura Mazda created light, fire, compact Japanese vehicles, joy, humanity, puppies probably, and Ramanyu gave the world disease, rust, mold, darkness, and that little piece of skin that pops up around your fingernail that hurts so...
I had to stop real quick. Did you hear him say the Japanese cars?
No, I missed it. See, I wasn't paying attention. See?
Listen.
Deceit, death, and decay. He is a corrupting parasite seeking to destroy Ahura Mazda's creation and is responsible for all negative things in the world. Ahura Mazda is light and Ramanyu is darkness. Ahura Mazda is the creator and Ramanyu the destroyer. Ahura Mazda created light, fire, compact Japanese vehicles, joy, humanity, puppies probably, and Ramanyu gave the world disease, rust, mold, darkness, and that little piece of skin that pops up around your fingernail that hurts so much. Why, Ramanyu? Why? Zoroastrians think everything is a battle between these two opposites. Ahura Mazda represents the truth, and Ramanyu, the lie. For humans, life is a constant choice between the truth and the lie, which may be difficult because Angramanyu can be very deceiving. Before time began, Ahura Mazda and Angramanyu were separated by an infinite void. They respectively lived in infinite light and infinite darkness. Then Ahura Mazda created the physical or Getig world. Angramanyu crawled into this new world and polluted it. They made the ocean salty, they turned the good earth into desert, killed the first human, made plants wither, and polluted fire with smoke. We now live in a time Zoroastrians refer to as the Gumezishin, or the mixture. Good and evil, truth and the lie both exist together in our world. But Angramanyu's presence is temporary. They are a stain on the world rather than a permanent fixture. Zoroastrians see the physical world as a trap that Ahura Mazda lured Angramanyu into. Now trapped in the physical world, Angramanyu can be defeated slowly by the good thoughts, good words, and good deeds of humans working with Ahura Mazda. 2. Heaven and Hell. Zoroastrians believe that when a person dies, their soul leaves their body. Their soul is then led to the bridge of judgment. Above this bridge lies heaven, below hell. Here, the soul's good and bad deeds are weighed on a scale. Depending on the balance of good to evil deeds, the soul ascends to heaven, a paradise of infinite bliss called the abode of song, or falls down to hell to suffer, quote, long age of misery, darkness, bad food, and the crying of woe. This is called England. Sorry. This is called Dulak. There's also a medium place for people who are neither good nor evil, where they kind of just float and experience nothing. Servants, as well as masters, can reach paradise. People will be judged according to how they chose to live their lives, rather than wealth or prestige. For Zoroastrians, death represents the highest form of pollution. Death only exists because of Angra Mainyu. Upon the death of a Zoroastrian, a priest will be called.
So I think that kind of touches a little bit and gives them wiggle room. Well, not wiggle room, because I guess this would be their idea, but that would be a good example of free will. I'm not saying that exists in Christianity, but in their religion, I would say it does, and it does because you have the option of being neither good nor bad, right? So because there's three options, I would say that that would be an example of free will. What about you?
See where it's an example of free will because you have three options as opposed to two. But in my world, that just leads to areas of gray. Does that
Sure.
make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think that when we're talking about free will, there needs to be an area of gray. Because, okay, so if there's no punishment to it, then, okay, I can pick whatever I want. You know, it's still kind of not 100% exactly the definition because there is a hell, there is a punishment. But I would rather my options be that. I would rather have three options than two. That's just me.
I can see where yeah, everybody would like to have three options instead of two, but this is how I used to do things with my kids. There's always your story, their story, and the truth. So I would ask each kid their story individually and devise my own truth out of the three stories that I got and punish according to the story that I came up with in my head after hearing the three different stories. I was not always correct. I was not always correct.
I feel you. That's true. I think he's going to touch on his definition of free will here in a second. Let me put that back up.
Perform a ceremony, after which the soul of the person will no longer be considered connected to the body. The family then says their goodbyes without touching the body, and the body will be placed on a stone slab and carried away by special corpse bearers. Since dead bodies are so polluting, Zoroastrians would never think to pollute any of the sacred elements with them, those being fire, water, earth, etc. So the traditional method to dispose of bodies, used for thousands of years, has been the Tower of Silence. Within the open-roofed stone tower, located on the top of barren hills, bodies will be laid to rest on stone slabs, as to not pollute the earth, and then eaten by vultures, normally within a few hours. The bones are bleached in the sun and quickly disintegrate into dust. By feeding the birds, the deceased offers up one final good deed of charity before crossing over the bridge. However, in the 1930s, the Iranian government banned the use of the towers, and currently towers in India are suffering from a shortage of birds due to increased urbanization and pollution. Today, many Zoroastrian communities use special burial grounds or have turned to electrical cremation or even using solar reflectors to harness the power of the sun to break down the bodies rather than polluting fire. 3. The apocalypse. The battle between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu will continue for thousands of years, but eventually a savior, or Soshant, will be born to a virgin mother who will lead people against the forces of evil and bring about times. The earth will be swallowed by fire, molten metal covered.
Ta-da! Jesus. I don't know if anyone caught that, but it was born from a virgin mother. This is another illustration of a religion that predates Christianity, and this is another example of the Immaculate Conception. If I'm misquoting that term, someone feel free to correct me. But this is just another example that the Virgin Mary story is not an original story. whatsoever. I used to think that all of them came from African religions, but that's not true. And this is an example.
Over everything. The good people will pass through this molten river, while the bad people will burn and be purified. The gates of hell will open, the souls of the damned will be released and redeemed, and everyone will live together in eternal bliss. Honestly, it all sounds pretty metal. Angra Mainyu, finally defeated by Ahura Mazda, and humanity's good thoughts, words, and deeds will be tossed back into the black abyss they crawled out of and defeated forever. This last judgment/apocalypse is called Frasho Kuri, meaning renewal, as in the renewal of Ahura Mazda's originally perfect creation. 4. The 3 Gs. The most important concept in Zoroastrianism after Ahura Mazda is Asha. This is an ancient Avestan word and is difficult to translate. Asha is truth, wisdom, goodness, justice, perfection, order, and progress all rolled into one word. Asha is the path of Ahura Mazda. Zoroastrians try their best to follow the path of Asha. To help
Was that what you were referencing earlier, NJ?
Yes, that is exactly what I was referencing earlier. Exactly what I was referencing earlier. It's a very, very popular name in India. Very popular. And it became popular in Muslim religion because it's also the name of the first wife of Muhammad.
That's correct. I didn't think about it like that. But yeah, that is her name. And they also later on, I don't know if he had mentioned it, but the Muslims invaded that area, and that's part of the reason why they don't have as many members, and that's the exact reason why I never heard of this religion until recently, versus me knowing about Islam the majority of my life.
And I'm surprised that I'd never heard of this religion before because after watching the 300, what was that movie with the Persians against the Greeks and Sparta and all that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was called 300.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I had went into a deep dive on Persians and all that, but I still, when I went into that deep dive, never heard of this religion. Never came back to this at all. I didn't know that they had gotten run off to India. I had no idea.
Me neither. I had never heard of the religion, and that is a good point. I had always assumed and correlated, the people in 300 as Muslims, right? That's what I was thinking that they were, right? But now this makes more sense, and it seems like that would have been stated at that time, but maybe not.
I It would have made the story a whole lot more interesting had it been mentioned. It really would have. But I can see why they didn't mention it. I can see why they didn't mention it. But it would have made the story a whole lot more interesting.
I understand why they wouldn't too, because one thing I've come to realize from doing debates, a person that is a Christian would rather, me personally, be a Muslim than be an atheist.
I am starting to notice that. I'm starting to notice that in the atheist spaces. I am starting to see that a whole lot.
But they won't admit it's the same. That's the same God.
It's always a different guy, and I'm trying to figure out where. But when you ask them questions, they start getting real defensive now. It's like, you're not letting me talk, you're not letting me explain, and it's like, we just need a yes or no answer to this question. We don't we don't need a 20-minute dissertation. Yes or no.
Right. And I
Doesn't
think that
work.
I think that leads to my other point that I always tell people is that it's a gang mentality. It's a blood and crip mentality. So look, in California gangs, which we're talking about, blood and crips, right? In the prison system, okay, so you better off. Okay, so the opposing gang respects you more if you're in the gang versus if you're not, because when they go in prison, their enemy really becomes a racial thing more than anything, right? So even though this cat may be a blood and you a crip, and there y'all not really beefing because you outnumbered by so many. So a person that's religious and a person that's Christian, they already think that they're being persecuted, You know what I'm saying? They think that the whole wide world is against them because they think that the devil is doing something to them. So they would rather a person that's fighting against the devil than a person that's not, because they do understand that whether if they agree with Muslims or not, that Muslims, are trying to fight against the devil as well. So it's a gang member that just has a slightly different belief than you, but you all fighting for the same non-cause. So it makes sense because they're gang members.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone because that is a system that doesn't make sense to me. And to be honest with you, I'm so tired of our school to prison pipeline and the church's help with that, because I will never forget that movie, Woman Thou Art Loose, and how at the end of the movie she went to jail and was found guilty and sentenced to death for killing somebody she should have killed years earlier, including the mama. I ain't like the end of that movie. I ain't like it at all. I'm tired of religion trying to make everybody feel as though the enemy is the devil instead of real live human beings of this world. It's starting to get on my nerves.
Exactly.
Help humanity follow Asha, Ahura Mazda gave them Vohu Mana, or good mind. This allowed humans to recognize right from wrong. Good mind lets us see injustice and feel that it is unjust. Through good mind, Ahura Mazda gave humans free will. This means a lot to Zoroastrians because choice is extremely important to their belief. From our good mind, we can have good thoughts, and from good thoughts follow good words, and then good deeds. Doing good thoughts, good words, and good deeds is the core of Zoroastrian belief. Good deeds such as taking part in your community, supporting others through tough times, standing up against injustice, fighting poverty, nursing the sick, and subscribing to educational YouTube channels all help in the battle against Angramanyu. This is why in India, Zoroastrians are known for their support of orphanages, shelters, and many different charities. It was Zoroaster that said, happiness comes to them who bring happiness to others. 5. Fire. Zoroastrians see fire as the sacred symbol of Ahura Mazda. It is considered to be pure and represents the truth. Inside Zoroastrian fire temples, their priests conduct all rituals in front of fire because it shows the presence of Ahura Mazda. But the fire is never actually worshipped itself. This is very important. Zoroastrians do not worship fire. Zoroastrianism also isn't a congregational religion. Most worship is done at home, and Zoroastrians tend to only go to fire temples during the 7 holy days or festivals they have each year. The most sacred fires in Zoroastrianism need to be made up of fire from 16 different sources, one of which needs to be ignited by light. 6. The Avesta. The Avesta is the holy book of the Zoroastrians and one of the oldest scriptures. It is written in an ancient language known as Avestan, which language spoken by Zoroaster roughly 3,500 years ago. The Avesta contains hymns from Zoroaster himself, known as gathas. These 17 gathas are deeply important to Zoroastrians, and most Zoroastrian belief is based on them. Due to the violence Zoroastrians have suffered throughout history, only a fraction of the Avesta survives today. For example, Zoroastrians believe that when Alexander the Great conquered the Achaemenid Empire, he burned the royal palace at Persepolis and its library to the ground, destroying a complete copy of the Avesta, written in gold on 12,000 goat skins. This might be why he isn't called Alexander the Great in Iran, but rather Alexander the Accursed. Even more Avesta was lost during the Arab, Turkic, and Mongol invasions of Iran. Yeah, Zoroastrians really couldn't catch a break there for a while. You can read the Avesta online for free, and a lot of it is extremely beautiful and thought-provoking. But if you're dunce like me, you'll love this section about how hedgehogs, known as the dog with the prickly back, serve Ahura Mazda, and turtles have sided with Angramanyu. Or the following chapter, atoning for the murder of a water dog, which is about how you'll be punished if you kill an otter. So you should be like the prickly boy and the water dog and help fight against evil. When the Achaemenid Empire, Cyrus the Great freed the Jews from Babylon. He not only showed the world the religious tolerance that Zoroastrian rulers would become known for, but he changed world history at the same time. For freeing the Jews, Cyrus was praised as a messiah in the book of Isaiah. This meant that Jewish thinkers were obviously quite receptive to Zoroastrians and Zoroastrian ideas. It is in that book of Isaiah that Yahweh is for the first time spoken of as a single creator god, like Ahura Mazda. The Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam owe a lot to Zoroastrianism, because while Zoroaster's teachings don't sound too revolutionary today, ideas like one all-powerful God, a cosmic battle between a loving God and their satanic nemesis, angels and archangels, a heavenly judgment that places the person in heaven or hell, and a final cataclysmic judgment that would purify the world and bring about the kingdom of God, where the good will live in eternal paradise, which is a Persian word, were all brand new ideas at that time. This means that while small today, Zoroastrianism has influenced the most sacred beliefs of billions of people. Even George R. R. Martin borrowed some Zoroastrian thought to make his religions in A Song of Ice and Fire, as you can see here.
Lord of Light is based in part on a couple of the dualist religions that actually existed in our world. One of them, the I can never say that.
Zoroastrian.
Yeah, whatever that is, yes. And the other one.
Good thoughts, good words, and good deeds are one of the most important things in Zoroastrianism, but they can be followed by literally anyone. A simple good deed you can do today to improve the world just a little bit is using Tab for a Cause. Tab for a Cause is a browser extension that donates to a charity of your choice every time you open an.
Yeah, I think that's about it on that video. He's advertising now. But yeah, to ask Sunkiss, again, previous to about a year ago, I had never ever heard that fucking word Zoroastrianism. However the hell you say it. I know I'm not saying it correctly, but I never heard that word before in my life. But you can clearly see the similarities. It comes from the same exact region, the Middle East. And it definitely predates it. What's your thoughts, NJ?
I appreciate the fact that they actually told the real story of what Alexander the Great burnt instead of trying to say it was some great Egyptian library. It had nothing to do with Egypt. Two different stories, two different times. But thank you, because now I know where it came from and I can better zoom in on the lie of Egypt. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Man, any story, well, not I'm not gonna say story, but anything about Egypt and Ethiopia, I look at like as a lie because we don't know exactly what the borders were. We're looking at it from the lens of the borders of those places today versus in those times, and they're clearly not the same thing. So when people say this shit, I'd be like, man, where the fuck are you talking about? Because that can be a variety of different places, but all this just shows that every religion and every group of people borrow things from each other, and it's clear as all day. I'm gonna go back to some reading. I'm gonna play another video from a different perspective as well. Second, I think I was reading from Wikipedia, right? Okay, originating from Zoroaster's reform of the ancient Iranian religion, Zoroastrianism began during the Avestan period, possibly as early as the second millennial BC, but was first recorded in the mid sixth century BCE. For the following millennium, it was the official religion of successive Iranian. I read that part, so I'm gonna move down. The political beliefs and practices of Zoroastrianism are contained in the Avesta, a compendium of sacred texts assembled over several centuries. Its oldest and most central component are the Gathas, supported to be the direct teachings of Zoroaster and his account of conversations with Ahura Mazda. These writings are part of a major section of the Avesta called the Yasna, which forms the core of Zoroastrian liturgy. Zoroaster's religious philosophy divided the early Iranian gods of Proto-Indo-Iranian paganism into eman- emanations of the natural word, the aurora, and the deva, the former class consisting of divinities to be revered, and the latter class consisting of divinities to be rejected and condemned. Zoroaster proclaimed that Ahura Mazda was the supreme creator and sustaining force of the universe, working in Getig, the visible material realm, and Manog, the invisible spiritual and mental realm, through the Amisha Spenta, a class of 7 divine entities that represent various aspects of the universe and the highest moral God. Emanating from Ahura Mazda is Spenta Manu, the holy or bountiful spirit, the source of life and goodness, which is opposed by Angra Manu, the destructive or opposing spirit, who is born from Akamana, evil thought. Angra Manu was further developed by Middle Persian literature into Hiram, Hiram Mazda's direct adversary. Sorry, I'm butchering these words because a lot of these words are not English words, and the language that they are written in is not native to me, so I apologize. A lot of this was played in the video. Zoroastrian's doctrine holds that within this cosmic dichotomy, human beings have the choice between Asha, the principle of righteousness or rightness that is prompted and embodied by Ahura Mazda, and Dru, falsehood, deceit, the essential nature of Angra Manu that expresses itself as greed, wrath, and envy. Thus, the central moral precepts of the religion are good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, which are recited in many prayers and ceremonies. Many of the practices and beliefs of ancient Iranian religion can still be seen in Zoroastrianism, such as reverence for nature and its elements, such as water, fire, which is held by Zoroastrians to be particularly sacred as a symbol of Ahura Mazda itself, serving as a focal point of many ceremonies and rituals, and serving as the basis for Zoroastrian places of worship, which are known as fire temples. Okay, so I'm gonna stop reading right there.
Fire temples, a bonfire. Let's all have a bonfire. Oh, wait a minute. Full moon's over. No more bonfires until the next full moon.
I'm, this is starting to make me wonder: did they have marshmallows in those times? Because that would have been
You
lit.
know, I've been curious about that myself. Did you know that one of the many fires going on in our nation recently, one of them was blamed on a marshmallow. They were roasting s'mores in the woods, and evidently the fire got away from them. And now thousands, or was it millions or thousands? I think that region it was thousands of acres had burnt because somebody wanted some s'mores in the woods.
And you know, them trees was dry as hell. Them pine trees. That's an easy fire right there. Mm.
I
So,
gotta watch my cigarettes around here with all the dry leaves we got. But it rained. It rained last night. We had a good storm. Good first storm of the spring. Oh my gosh, it was so exciting. We had thunder, lightning, everything.
that brings me to a different thought, but I think I'll ask you that offline because I never understood that.
Got you.
Okay. Um. So far, what I'm taking from Zoroastrianism is basically it's Christianity 101, right? It's just the characters have different names. Um, and then you just add the Torah to the beginning of it.
I'm ready to go buy a Mazda. I'm ready to go over to my favorite used car lot and see if they've got any Mazdas out there. I really am. I'm I don't Mazdas is about the only one you can find that still use manual drive. There's not too many car makers that still use manual drive. I love manual drive. I still do to this day. Because my mama made me learn. She would not let me get my license until I could drive all vehicles.
I had a '08 Dodge. Man, that's a damn shame. My mind is fried. It wasn't that long ago I had it too, but it was a stick shift. I learned how to drive it on that. I was about mm, 35, 36 when I learned.
Yeah, my very first car I got from my mother. It was manual drive. And when I took it home, I had to show my then husband how to drive it because he couldn't stand a car being there that he couldn't drive. So I had to put my little hootie. He, I had to risk everything to teach him how to drive it because the thought of a car being there that he couldn't drive was just not cool. I don't know why. He never drove it because I was always in it running the streets like I should have been.
I respect literally his drive to learn because I had to learn. I had no choice. I had got a lawsuit. I had bought two cars, and one of them was a stick shift. Man, that shit was so fucking hard for me to learn how to drive. But one day I had to drive and go to work at night over an hour away. I learned that night. But truthfully, I was driving the fucking car for about 4 or 5 months until I learned how to roll it. So every time I pull out, like, for the longest, and then somebody was like, "Just roll the bitch." I said, "What?" He like, "Just let off the clutch just a little bit, bro. And once it starts going, then go." Once that happened, once I learned that, now I'm in a different fucking state. I'm 4 or 5 hours away when this person telling me this. It was over. I knew then.
That the roll is everything. The roll is everything. I can do almost everything with just the clutch. What? Gas pedal? What's that? That's just for going faster. That's my speeding ticket right there. It's between the clutch and this stick. I got it. I got it. I got it.
If push, I don't got the car no more. But if push come to shove, when the clutch go out, I still could drive it. I just can't. Just most times I can't put that bitch in fifth. That's about it. But other than that, once it's going, I done did it on the freeway. Listen, I done drove from where I live to Pittsburgh to go to a fucking party with no clutch before. I mean, it's stupid now, but yeah.
Look, 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 look. When we're younger, it's all about the party. It's about the party. And I was younger, and then the kids came along, and I was like, but 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 I don't want to stop yet. And I had a wonderful mother-in-law who was retired and ain't had nothing else better to do than sit in the house with kids. What? You mean I ain't gotta stop the show? I could just drop them off and go. Why they tell me that? Why? Why? My daughter to this day is more my mother-in-law than me. Her daddy swears she's just like me. I be like, that's your mama all day long. Anything that you see that you don't like, that's your mama.
Right. You funny. All right, I'm gonna play this other video. Well, I thought I had it. Maybe I didn't.
I think I just won my taxes.
Oh yeah?
I just switched from TurboTax to H&R Block.
I hate how they always try to advertise, but won't let you do it.
I know. You would think that they would be
Zoroastrianism,
happy we were sharing their ads.
we'd ever heard of. To some,
I swear.
it's the religion that Freddie Mercury belonged to. But the fact is, Zoroastrianism, historically speaking, is one of the most important religions to have ever existed. The religion of Zoroastrianism is old. It's very old. It originates in what is today Iran, in the region known as Persia, with the appearance of the prophet and quote-unquote founder Zarathustra, also known as Zoroaster in Greek. Now, as with similar ancient figures like him, it's very, very hard, basically impossible, to pin down an exact date for when he lived. But scholars suggest that he might have lived around, well, between 1400 to 1200 BCE, while others also say that he may have lived around 800 BCE. So there isn't consensus about it. The religion practiced in Persia prior to Zarathustra's mission was a kind of polytheism or paganism, very closely connected to the Vedic tradition in India, in which other religions like Hinduism and Jainism and Buddhism also later developed. This can be seen by the fact that many of the gods cross over between the two traditions, but have slightly different names based on the language. This includes gods like Saraswati and Indra and many others. The deities worshipped by the Persians were associated with things like water and fire, as well as natural phenomena or abstract concepts like love or wisdom. The cult and worship surrounding these deities included things like offerings and animal sacrifice, all performed by a class of priests, very similar to the Brahmins of the Indian context. The prophet and founder Zarathustra most likely belonged to this class of priests. It is said that he would wander around Persia looking for wisdom and truth, and during these travels he would see a lot of injustice, a lot of violence, and just a lot of nasty stuff in general, which would of course influence the very ethically based message that he would later convey. And his life, according to tradition, is said to have changed dramatically one day when he was celebrating a spring festival. And during this festival, he went down to the water to fetch some water for the festival. And after he had been standing in waist-high water and returned shore, being thus ritually purified, he then suddenly had an intense vision of light. And in this light, he experienced the presence of the god Ahura Mazda and 6 other radiant beings, from which he then received his first revelation. The god Ahura Mazda was nothing new to Zarathustra or the Persians. He was a god who had been worshipped prior to this, and whose name literally means...
I just have to stop it right there because it's always the same story. It's always somebody that's seen some shit or got a divine revelation when nobody else the fuck was around. Like,
Right.
why is
Nobody
nobody
is
ever
ever around
around?
when this happens. Like, if I see something strange in the sky, I guarantee you I can call out, "Hey, can you see that? Can you see what?" And they be like, "Yeah, I can see that." Okay, that's real. That's real. Two sets of eyes have seen it, observed it, commented upon it. We agree. We agree.
Some bullshit.
Lord Wisdom. He was one of the more exalted gods in the pantheon, belonging to a group of gods called the Ahuras, the Indian equivalent of which is Ashura. What was so unique about the revelation that Zarathustra received and that he would convey was that Ahura Mazda was no longer just some god. He was now the one uncreated eternal god who was the creator of the world and of everything good. Ahura Mazda was the guardian and embodiment of a concept called Asha, meaning the order of the universe, and in a moral sense also represented things like righteousness and justice. The opposite of this is a term called drudge, synonymous with things like evil, falsehood, and violence. These forces were not the creation of Ahura Mazda, but by another immortal being called Angra Mainyu, or the hostile spirit. In the teachings of Zarathustra, the world of creation is a constant battlefield between the forces of Asha and drudge, between good and evil, light and darkness. Zarathustra himself left behind a collection of hymns known as the Gathas, which was first orally transmitted and then written down under the Sasanian Empire. The Gathas can be considered the sort of most sacred scriptures to the Zoroastrians and are part of a larger collection of sacred texts called the Avesta, the rest of which was written after Zarathustra by priests. A question that quickly arises with this very strongly dualistic outlook is the very nature of Zoroastrianism's theology. Some claim that Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic religion, while others say that it's a dualistic faith or dualistic theology. Scholars and Zoroastrians alike have never really been able to agree on whether or not Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic religion or not. But if it is, that would be pretty significant, because then it would be most likely the oldest monotheistic religion in the world that we know of. Scholars like Mary Boyce argues for the dualistic alternative, describing Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu as equally uncreated opposing forces, while others like Farhang Mer proposes a view where Zarathustra's original message was that there was but one god, and dualistic forces were part of his creation, thus below him. But perhaps it's wiser to look at this from a more nuanced perspective, and not try to define Zoroastrianism with such arbitrary and anachronistic, really, terms like monotheism or polytheism. There have been other arguments, like that of James Boyd and Donald Crosby, who suggest that none of the above explanations are good enough. Instead, they propose that, quote, "In brief, the interpretation we favor is that Zoroastrianism combines cosmogonic dualism and eschatological monotheism in a manner unique to itself among the major religions in the world. This combination results in a religious outlook which cannot be categorized as either straightforward dualism or straightforward monotheism." The fact is that the old Iranian or Persian pantheon of gods remain in the Zoroastrian system, at least according to later interpretations of its theological ideas. When the prophet had his first vision at the river, it is said that he saw, along with Ahura Mazda himself, a group of 6 lesser beings. These are known as the Spenta Mainyu, or 6 lesser divinities, all representing different attributes of the high god, like righteousness, devotion, and health, while remaining hierarchically beneath him and sort of part of his creation. They are sometimes considered emanations of Ahura Mazda, with the symbolism of a torch lighting other torches used to describe this process of emanation. Another term used to describe these lesser divinities is Amesha Spentas, or holy immortals. But this term is also used to refer to any lesser deity who emanates from Ahura Mazda, and includes most of the old gods of the pantheon. Thus, worship and veneration of the old gods continued under Zoroastrianism, and especially of the highest 6 divinities, because these represented attributes of the high god Ahura Mazda, and were thus worshipped separately. The exception to this is another group of deities known as the Devas, which also has an Indian equivalent of the same name. These gods represent things like violence and war, and thus they serve the hostile spirit Angra Mainyu rather than Ahura Mazda. And Zarathustra very strongly rejected any worship of these Devas, these deities. In Zoroastrian cosmology, creation is seen as cyclical and often divided into
If you don't want
three
them to worship him,
phases.
why bring
The
him
first
up?
of which is called simply creation. It's the first phase when Ahura Mazda, God, creates the world in a perfect state, free from all evil and all darkness. But as soon as this creation comes about, the evil spirit Angra Mainyu attacks it and infiltrates it with darkness and evilness. And this starts the second phase, known as mixture, when both good and evil, light and darkness, exist alongside each other in the world and are battling. This is the time we live in now. So obviously, giant pandas are the creation of Ahura Mazda, while stepping in water with your socks on is clearly the creation of Angra Mainyu. Human beings are also important players in this battle, and much like the good deities have a responsibility.
When we were watching the first video, some of the stuff that the guy was saying, I don't know, because NJ, you had walked away, you know. But some of the stuff that the guy was saying, I was literally thinking that he was joking. Now I'm seeing that he's not joking about some of the shit he was saying. Like, what would give you the idea? The wind is blowing so hard that my blinds in my house are coming off the windows. But that's why I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. Maybe this is whatever they just called the evil being, that the wet sock.
Did you let him in through your window? Cause there's no breeze over here. Am I on the correct side?
Man, listen, my blinds, like okay, so I got sliding windows, right, in my kitchen, and it's only cracked about maybe this much, and the blind is just flying way off the fucking window.
Window fully elevated, blinds right there. Nothing's moving. I'm just watching the breeze pass through the budding leaves. Thanks for making me look outside. We do have leaves budding. I'll be damned.
Shit, we do too, but they are all about to get blew off today. They going for a fly. But yeah, strange. Definitely strange. The wind made me lose my train of thought too.
Sounds ominous.
Okay, so I see one thing that I did notice how they're debating about whether it's monotheistic, polytheistic. Um, I think that just depends on from what time frame we're talking about, because clearly, after a while, they made an idea of a supreme God and immaculate conception and all that shit. So if we're talking about previous to that happen, then I would have to go with polytheistic. But after that, then maybe not.
But they're all polytheistic because they got a good and a bad.
True.
That's not one. That's two. They're
That's true.
all poly because it believe in one God. But that one God has one arch nemesis. That's two individuals. That's not one.
That's true. That's true. I also tell people all the time that the only people that actually believe in the devil are y'all. You know, so it makes sense. And y'all look at him as a god. So
Every
when people,
time they bring up the devil, I was like, it seemed like the devil was fun to me. Y'all just trying to talk people out of having fun because according to everything that you guys are explaining, everybody I know, love, and adore is going to be in hell. That's where I'm going because that's where everybody that I know is at.
exactly,
So why would I want to strive to be different on this plane? Why? I'm gonna live the same life that they live and join them in hell and keep the party rolling.
exactly, and it's for different reasons. Okay, my father wasn't a believer. His father wasn't a believer. You know, so they definitely there. My older brother, he was a part of the LGBTQ community. He's not there. And then I also have a lot of family members that were messed up individuals, immoral and messed up individuals according to what this book says. And the crazy thing about it is the people that I'm thinking about in my mind, and I'm not going to mention who they are, they're the most religious, right? And by every standard in the book, they can't go. Literally, no woman I know on planet Earth that I've ever met in my life qualifies to go to heaven for one reason or the other. I mean, you have a couple exceptions here and there, but in general, there's no way a woman can actually get in there. If she folds on any of her womanly desires from the time she's of age or whatever to the time she die, she does not qualify to go there. So then I have to start thinking, is my mom there?
And
No.
that is why when I make that choice to look for a relationship, I let it be known from day one, I am the demon that your religion has told you about. And if you got a problem with that, let's just go ahead and pay for the drinks and call it a day. Because I'm not going to change. I'm set in my ways.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly, but then we have to take it to a different level. You have to ask yourself what you're asking me to do. And what you're asking me to do is play stupid. I'm not doing that. I'm not, I know better. I know what it's about. I know it's not true. So if you think just to have sex with you, that I'm gonna sit there and lie to myself with you, I'm not doing. You're making me sin by saying this. You're making me do because I'm lying. I don't believe this shit. I don't.
I
So
was raised feral. I didn't know nothing about the church until I met the man that I had decided I wanted to have children with. And him and his family got together and decided that in order for this to happen, I had to follow some practices of their family. And I made the choice to do it, but with my eyes wide open, because, like I said, I already knew I wasn't going to change. So I'm going to need you to tweak that word. I will say this word. I will not agree to this term. And and um and like you said, and like you said, is I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, I pay by check because I need documentation of this for tax purposes. I didn't want to do
hmm
this, but if you're gonna make me do it, I'm gonna do it
hmm
right. I'm not stupid.
I mean, hey, I mean, why should you just miss out on everything just to make something convenient for the next motherfucker? I'm already giving your punk ass my money and you ain't working for it. And then you think I'm not gonna claim it when it's taxable? Fuck you. You two times the criminal. The fuck? Like I'm not doing that shit. Like, and it's just crazy. And then like when I talk to people that don't know me or whatever, that haven't known me for a long period of time, they think that, I grew up like this. No. I picked the fucking book up and started reading it myself. And once I started reading it and thinking about it, and honestly, I have to give credit to this class I took in college, right? I went to college a little bit later in life too. I went to college for the second time when I was about 30 or 31. And there was this one class that was called critical thinking, right? And ever since I
That's a
had
good
that
class,
class,
by the way. That's a good
right?
class.
Ever since I had that class, it made me think about things totally different. It made me try to disprove shit in a way. And once I can disprove something, I know that it's not true. So what can you do? You know?
Critical thinking and debate. Critical thinking and debate. And I had a teacher who was so gung ho about getting me into the law, and I'm like, because them laws don't make no sense. They're contradictory, every last one of them. I would go insane trying to be a lawyer. Doesn't make any sense to me.
I would only do it just for the monetary reasons because they get paid some serious, serious money.
If
They're
they win. And when I found out that people was packing their cases and talking to judges and all of that stuff, it's
so
not my cup of tea.
so it depends on what kind of lawyer there is. Like if you're a lawsuit lawyer, like there's some lawyers that's all they do. They won't take your case unless they know that they're gonna win, right? So once you do that so long, and that's where the money really is at, then you good to go. You know what I'm saying? You got your little basis or whatever. Then you can start charging X amount just for retainer fees. Some people do that type shit. Some people are quarter point. A lot of them start as quarter point lawyers, right? Until they get their name in the street. Because who do you really know that's really a criminal? Especially if we're talking about like drug dealers, that really has $5,000 just to give to his lawyer right then and there. Most don't. There's some that do, but it's the minority for sure. So you have a lot of that shit. Most people don't have money for a lawyer. When I used to get in trouble and shit like that, I didn't have money for a lawyer myself. So they're expensive. So
I never got money for a lawyer ever, 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 ever. And usually when I do get sidestepped with lawyers and stuff, it's because somebody else is trying to sue, but they need me to say what happened when it happened for whatever reason. And I just be looking at everybody like, if you're dependent on me, just go ahead and say you lost, because I'm bad. I'm terrible. What do you need me to say for me to get a cut? If I ain't getting a cut, I don't remember nothing. Does that make sense?
yeah, most of my dealings with lawyers have to do with lawsuits anyway. So
You get tired. I got so tired of suing employers, and it gets tiring after a while. It's like, come on, man. At this point, you should be giving me freebies. Cause really,
was you winning? Was you winning?
the people around me was the second husband won his, the first husband got his way, in all his lawsuits. And now everybody just sits back waiting to see what I'm gonna do. And I'm like, I don't, it ain't me. You ain't gotta worry about me. I could care less. Did y'all get your money that you wanted? Good.
Shit,
Have
cut me
fun.
in. Cut me in, Unc.
Dude, I'm more worried about my uncles cutting me out.
Well,
That's
you gotta make up for it.
what happens when you the first grandbaby, you the girl, and everybody else is a dude. When your grandmom passes away, all of a sudden them dude uncles, their wives be sitting there going, "What niece? What girl? What you talking about? You ain't gotta cut her in on nothing. Don't nobody even remember she exists. Shh. Just don't tell her. We can keep the money. Yes, you can. Go ahead, keep it. Enjoy yourself."
I think that happens with everybody, no matter what the circumstance.
Yeah, every last one.
To promote righteousness and goodness and expel evilness from the world. This is done in a number of ways, but primarily through the basic moral principle that was laid down by Zarathustra, which is good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Thus, humans and creation have a clear purpose in Zoroastrianism, that is to gradually expel the forces of Angramenu, of evil, until the third and final phase is reached. It's called separation, when creation is once again in a perfect paradisial state. Given the fact that Zarathustra's message was so ethically based, he introduced certain ideas that were revolutionary for his time. For example, in his thought, people would be judged after death, and this judgment would lead either to reward or punishment. And most importantly, departed souls were judged based on their actions in this life, and not on things like riches or status, which was the case in the earlier pagan religion. Thus, reward was open to anyone, and so was punishment. So it didn't matter if you were rich or what status you had. If you'd been a bad person, you would end up being punished after death. If you had been deemed good, then you'd be able to cross a bridge into a paradise of delights. But if you had been bad, then that bridge would contract to the size of a blade's edge, and you would most likely fall down into hell, a place of great torment and torture. Furthermore, at the end of time, when the battle of good and evil is over, all the bodies of the dead will be resurrected and subjected to a last judgment, Ahura Mazda, after which you will either live in hell or remain in the paradise-like land of the perfected creation, which is now free from all evil and darkness. In terms of practice, Zoroastrianism has gone through a number of developments throughout history. Zoroastrians have often been rather negatively referred to as fire worshippers by the Muslim conquerors, for example. But this is a rather misleading term. It is true that fire plays an important role in the practice and symbolism of the faith, serving as the symbol for purity and God's wisdom and light. Fire, as well as water, appear to have been an important part of ritual for Zoroastrians since the very inception. But the appearance of things like fire temples or heightened platforms with fire altars appear to have been a much later development, probably sometime during the Achaemenid Empire. But nonetheless, fires and temples did become and still remain very important aspects of the faith and their practice. Connected to this, fire and its representation of purity is the idea of ritual purity, which is one of the most important aspects of this faith. It is the duty of every person to keep clean, because dirtiness or uncleanliness is an aspect or manifestation of evil and darkness. This led to certain laws regarding ritual purity, which unfortunately, for example, limited women in their movements during their menstrual periods, for example, because they were seen as unclean for its duration. One can also see similar ideas expressed in the rather famous funerary rites of the Zoroastrians. As the body was considered unclean, once the soul had departed from it, the body was taken out to an open space where it would be eaten by animals.
I ain't climbing up
And
that
the
fucking
bones
hill.
would later be collected to await the day of resurrection. One should keep in mind that this is all connected to the cosmic battle between Asha and Drudge, and thus seen as a necessary and logical measure to fulfill our purpose in creation. Moreover, another important ritual practice of Zoroastrianism is the celebration of 7 yearly festivals, all connected to the 6 Ameshaspentas, the higher divinities, and one also connected to fire, which could be seen as the sort of lifeblood of all of them. And the festival of fire is known as Nowruz, or also known today as Persian New Year, on the day of the spring equinox. And this was meant originally to signify, because the summer is coming, to signify the partial and temporary victory of light over darkness. The priest of Zoroastrianism is called Magi, a term that was used by the Greeks to refer to the entire religion as well. A fun fact is that according to the New Testament, there was 3 Magi that visited Jesus in Bethlehem carrying gifts, also known as sometimes as the 3 wise men. In fact, this connection to other religions is partly what makes Zoroastrianism so special. If you remember what I said in the beginning, Zoroastrianism is arguably one of the most important religions in history, and this is partly due to how much it has affected the religions of the world. Concepts introduced by the Zoroastrians, like heaven and hell, the day of resurrection, and the last judgment, as well as the dualistic cosmology with an evil adversary to God and his servants, the Devas, and even the idea of a coming savior, or in Abrahamic terms, Messiah. It is highly probable that these ideas made it into Judaism in the post-exile period, and thus very much influenced its development going forward. These ideas were then later picked up by both Christianity and Islam, and serves as some of the most fundamental aspects of these religions. So it isn't entirely wrong to say that many of the fundamental principles of the 3 Abrahamic world religions, as well as the Baha'i faith, have their direct origins in Zoroastrianism and the teachings of Zarathustra. After its initial spread, Zoroastrianism really only became a significant force on the world scene with the appearance of the Achaemenid Empire, also known as the Persian Empire, which adopted Zoroastrianism as a kind of state religion. And this is the empire, of course, with Cyrus the Great and Darius and Xerxes and all these people. Its doctrines further developed over time, and as it continued to serve as the state religion for the other empires, the Seleucids and the Sasanians, it sort of remained strong right up until the time of the Arab invasion at the advent of Islam, after which it kind of started to decline. It is true that the conquering Muslims often gave the Zoroastrians a hard time, that for much of history since then they have been an oppressed minority. But one should also remember that in many periods and by many people, the Zoroastrians were also considered among the Ahl al-Kitab, the people of the book, and thus they were considered protected people by the Muslims. But this doesn't change the fact that oppression still happened, of course. Temples were destroyed and so on. But one should be careful not to use a reading of history that is too black or white in any of the 2 extreme directions. As a result of these historical circumstances, many of the Zoroastrians moved to India, and over time there developed 2 rather distinct groups, often referred to as, on the one hand, the Iranian Zoroastrians, and on the other, the Indian Parsis, the later of which Freddie Mercury belonged to. A discussion on the history and distinction of these 2 groups will have to be saved for another time, but this grouping still remains today. But nonetheless, the persecution and oppression that the Zoroastrians have faced, especially in Iran, ignored in a video like this. It still continues to this day under the current Iranian leadership, and this unfortunate history has been a contributing factor to the religion's decline in numbers. The actual number of Zoroastrians in the world today is difficult to know for sure, partly due to the state of affairs in Iran. But a study conducted in 2012 by the Federation of Zoroastrian Associations of North America shows that the numbers might be slightly above 100,000 people, which of course isn't a lot. And most of these live in India or central Iran, with also diaspora communities in places like North America and Great Britain. Indeed, Zoroastrianism is sometimes called a dying religion due to its decreasing numbers, and partly due to its reluctance to accept any converts. The reality might be such that in the near future there won't be any Zoroastrians left. And this would be a shame, because it's a fascinating and rich tradition, and one that is incredibly significant for our world heritage and the development of the so-called world religions. We probably wouldn't be where we are without Zoroastrianism and Zarathustra. But let's continue this discussion in the comments. For example, do you think that Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic or a dualistic faith? And do you think there's any chance of it surviving into the future?
Nope.
To any Zoroastrians out there, I hope I have represented your faith in a fair and acceptable manner, and I'll see you next time.
I don't know if you sent your breeze over here, but it's getting windy. And again, I'm just going to note that this beginning religion again, finds women to be unclean for the natural function of their body. And why? Only because women don't want to have sex during their period. That's why.
I disagree. I don't say that's the only reason. That is a strong reason, but I don't think it's
Okay.
the only reason why they would think it's impure. I think because also at the same time that would be a time when the man, especially whoever wrote that fucking book, don't want to either. So he telling you that it's impure because you have to take it. Think about it like this, NJ. In those times, do you have the right to say yes or no? Nope. You don't got the right. So who gives a fuck what you want? You know what I'm saying? Who cares? So I think it has to do with that. But I think it's because
And
the whoever wrote that shit, those men at that time was
and
like,
you
you know
can
what?
have
Look,
more, and you can have the side pieces, because you can line them up, be like, all right, you be on your period this week, this one be on their period that week, that one be on their period this week, and the other, until all the ladies sync up, until they
oh
all
yeah,
sync up, then they get in their feelings and be like, I want a new one that's not synced up.
you gotta tag in your concubines. You gotta tag in the maids. You gotta tag in whoever the fuck else. It's like, you know what? And that practice uh lasted a very long time. It wasn't. It was as of recent. Like I would say, if you just
Because I be on nanny TikTok, it still works that day. They still want you to tag in the maid, Arnold Schwarzenegger. They still want you to tag in the nanny, if
mm,
if they're willing. If they're willing. If they're not willing, they have very interesting beds that you can chain them up in under the bed and keep them hidden secret. It's a real industry. I'm just saying.
oh yeah, it definitely happens. It definitely happens. But what I was mentioning is like, okay, so a lot of times when we have these situations, um, there's at least one person that either is unaware or is pretending to be unaware. You know, I think in those times, and even up to I would say the 1800s, I think it was more of a everybody involved knows the situation. It's not like, oh, he's out there cheating on me with the slaves. It was more like, look, I'm tired of you fucking the shit out of me. I'm bleeding, bitch. Go out there and get one of them pickaninnies real quick and do what you got to do. I think now it's more like, oh, you cheated on me with the man. More of that game. I mean, I'm not saying either one is right or either one is wrong, but I think it's a lot more of that now. And with Arnold Schwarzenegger, I just think that, bro, you could have shot your standards could have been a little bit high, bro. This little bit. She wasn't no looker. I mean, you can probably get anything. You're the governor of the state. That's a tough one. I ain't doing that. I'll pay for some shit before that. Fuck that. Paying either way. Nah. Go get your niece or something.
Something, but but I don't know what his children with Maria Shriver look like, but I know that the maid's child looked just like him. I know that for a fact. I've seen them online.
I had forgot all about that situation until you just brought it back up. But that definitely was a real thing. He definitely did that. You should have been a little bit more careful than that, bro. But it
I'm
don't
just
matter.
saying, like, y'all didn't have no condoms in the house. You couldn't afford delivery. I don't. You know what? Let me mind my business. That is not my business. That is somebody else's marriage. Let me leave that alone.
Of course, he don't got no condoms in the house because if uh the Kennedy sees it, then you fuck. That's like, okay, so if you in a relationship and you trying to fuck around, you can't keep that shit on you. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to grab that the moment and then move on. Because if you, I mean, you married, y'all got kids. The fuck you got a condom for? So I think that it was a lot of that. I mean, he's still the governor, so he can still play it safer than that, for sure, for sure. But I don't know. He's I don't know. I'm not knocking that up.
All I'm gonna say is I didn't all that story come out. You know what? I'll look it up. I'll look it up. We ain't got to talk about it here.
Yeah, he fell for the okie doke on that one. But he probably like, fuck it, I didn't live the American dream. You know, I'm old. Fuck it. You here? He probably don't even care. He's like, all right, well, I take care of the kid. I'm an old geezer either fucking way. But with Zoroastrianism, again, I think well, I don't think clearly um it played a major role in a lot of the major religions that we see today. Um the free will concept, the heaven and hell concept. Um I'm not going to give it credit for the Immaculate Conception. I'm not going to give it credit for that because that's not the first one. It's not. It's there's so many of them. Um, but
But
I
wait
can
a
see
minute.
them.
If this is supposedly the oldest religion, if this is supposedly the beginning of the story, according to the philosophers that was writing about something from 6,000 years before, wouldn't wouldn't you have to have the story of the Immaculate Conception along with the Magi so that it transfers to what we now have as the Bible?
Oh, absolutely. But what I'm saying is, I'm not going to give them credit for that story because I don't think that they're the ones who originated that. I think, well, I know that there's the stories about the Immaculate Conception that predate this one as well. So what I'm saying is, you stole that too, you know, because the region you got it from is not far either, right? You could say that you got it from Amen Ra. You could say you got it from Christian. I don't know who the fuck got it first. I just don't think that they made that up. Is what I'm saying.
Understood. Understood. So
No,
who made it up? Now I want to know who made up this story of this Immaculate Conception that nobody can prove
oh,
and nobody can repeat.
I don't know. Now, Christianity may have got that from them too. Yeah, but they definitely didn't make it up. But um, to answer the question that the guy asked towards the end, will this religion survive? No, no. Think about it. We've never heard of this shit until recent, as of recent, and the reason why is because they don't accept converts, right? I think it's the same exact reason. Okay, like when we talk about the population in the United States of Black people, right? Okay, so the reason why when they say, "Yo, you've been been that same number forever and ever and ever," okay, because you're not replenishing the people that are here, right? Every other nationality, there's more coming. Us, no, they regulate the amount of Black people that come here, and one way they do that is by deeming the country as a third world country. Now, you don't see no countries that are predominantly Black that have visa waivers to come here. You don't see that. So what they're doing is they're systematically making sure no more come. Now, if you're talking about any other ethnic group, you can't stop it. If you're talking about Hispanics, they have a free way of getting in. Well, a couple of different ways, right? If you're Puerto Rican, you're automatically a United States citizen, right? They have the wet foot policy with Cubans. If your foot touches the ground, they can't send you back, right?
Yeah.
The border has always been wide open, which to me there isn't any border because you stole that from them either way, right? So
Yeah.
I don't give a
Mexico
fuck.
was completely stolen.
Yeah, right.
Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, most of California and Nevada all used to belong to
Exactly,
Mexico.
exactly. Utah, yeah, heck yeah. Idaho, yeah. So I mean that way too. You know, they've been coming. I mean, I'm not saying that it's always been legal for them to come, but at the same time, they've always been in that same exact area that we just mentioned, right? And then the border there's never been a border. They've been just coming since the beginning of time. I have friends that are from El Paso, Texas, and I'm telling you, they told me they used to walk across the fucking river, go kick it with their cousins, and come the fuck back when it was time to go with ease. So it's the same exact concept when we talk about this religion. You're not replenishing the people that you had. So people are going to die off, right? And then they're facing persecution. Look where they're at. Look where this religion is centered at. Iran. You are getting hella pressure from Muslims in that region. Hella pressure, right? They could say that they're being protected, whatever, but you have different sects. Some of them don't give a fuck about that protection. If you don't worship Allah, that gives them the right to do something to you or to pressure you to, right? And as generations go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, that takes a toll. You go to India, you got it coming from every direction. You got the Muslims there that are, fighting. You got the Hindus there that are fighting. So there's no way. There's no
and
way that this
and
religion
in and India has like a triple fight. Like they're fighting amongst religions, but within the religion is also the whole country's caste system, which is
facts.
and their caste system takes precedence over the religion. So you kind of like SOL, no matter what in India, with what you are born into. Like in their caste system, what you are born into is what you will be all your life. Like there's no there's no religious way out of what caste you're born into. So
That's true.
that's why a lot of people like to leave India, because there's no changing what you're born into in India. You can go to another country and be whatever you want, but whatever you're born into in India, that's what you are.
Right. Don't fuck around and be no Dalit. Oof. That's the worst right there. And you don't see too many of them here either. So they fucked. They can't even leave.
Well, it's kind
First
of
time I
hard
seen one, I'm
in
like,
and
yeah.
yeah, it's hard in that caste to get the money to leave.
hmm Or the education. Being a Dalit for sure.
Yeah,
That's fucked up. I
just
think I
saying.
think the only way that you can get treated worse than a Dalit is if you were African and you in India. And that's debatable.
You know what? Facts, facts, facts,
And it's
facts.
sad. So what's your overall take on Zoroastrianism before we get out of here?
My overall take on it is thank you for bringing it to my awareness, because
You're welcome.
it helped a lot. That now I understand why there's so many holes in other stories that I've heard or trying to figure out, trying to dive into, and I'm like, how did I never run into this before ever?
It's definitely a great arguing point, but the thing about it is once I start bringing it up to people, it's gonna do just like how when it was being brought up to me, they not gonna know what the fuck I'm talking about. They not gonna know. But it's crystal clear. The concept of the devil most certainly came from that. Now, we can say that, oh well, where's the proof that it lines up with it? Again, that's the same argument I said about MC Hammer and Big James. Okay, you can say that You Can't Touch This was a bigger hit, but what you can't say is that he originated that beat. You can't say that. And you can't say he didn't get it from him, right? And Iran is right there. It's right there. It's in direct line with other Abrahamic religions that are in that same region. Mecca is not far, right? Israel is not far. Jerusalem is not far. Especially for the people that would make the claim that, oh, well, Christianity was in Ethiopia first. Man, that's far as a motherfucker compared to what I'm talking about right now. That's
And what I love is what they forget is a lot of these places were named after the invention of the story. Does that make you know what I'm saying?
yeah, that wasn't Iran. That wasn't the name of that place. Not whatsoever. None of those places were named what it was.
Which is one of the things that drives me crazy about American history, but we'll do that another day when we're talking about it.
America too.
I mean, give me 2 minutes. Don't go nowhere.
Yeah, definitely America too, because this country was named after an Italian. It was named after Americo Vespucci. I know I'm probably butchering the last part of his name, but he was a conquistador, truthfully, uh, what they would call a traveler, an explorer, and from my understanding, he heard stories from the person we call Christopher Columbus, which is not his name. Um, and he actually made the trip and he landed to what they call Turtle Island, which is the continental United States or North America. Um, I don't know what the name of it was previous to that, but I know that that was their name for it, Turtle Island, which is definitely an understatement. But I'm just bringing this all up is because all of this is just um, recent names, recent history names by conquerors, invaders, colonizers, whatever you want to call them, conquistadors, whatever the fuck you want to call them. Um, they're calling you. We're named after what they wanted to call us in every situation. So,
Yep, yep, yep. And it took them a little bit of time, but they were able to make us forget most things, except for those occasional things that show up, like, maps with the old names on them. They didn't get rid of all of them, but I'm not very sure about all of them either. Some of them are kind of contradictory.
of course, because I mean, how could you make an accurate map in the 1400s to 1500s to 1600s to 1700s, the 1800s, and some of the 19? How could you make that accurate? There's no fucking way. There's no way. Um, I always wonder how did they count the borders, like the distance between the borders. I guess it would literally be in feet. I know that would take forever, but there's no way that you could actually accurately estimate like the shape of like Florida. How would you know that?
I'm still. They couldn't. They couldn't. That's not the point. But what I love is what they're doing with the maps now, because we have computers and they can do that, and they're putting the land masses back together, and they're trying to show where the land masses used to all be compacted together. And I'm like, y'all stretching. You stretching. You stretching real bad.
They are, and another thing about the land masses being connected, I'm starting to see different variations of it with different names. They're saying that they moved here, then moved back, then moved here. So the question begs is how old is the Earth? Like literally, how fucking old is it? And how many different formations has it had? I believe some of them because I do see the signs in Africa where the continent is splitting. You can see it clear as all day.
Right. You can clearly see it is now splitting. The water is doing what water does. It's finding the cracks and it's getting in there. I can see that.
Hmm.
We can document it because we can see it. But some of the theories that they are coming up with, you know, about what the earth looked like before we could see it and document it, I believe they're stretching. I think they're taking the puzzle pieces and trying to shove them together and make them work, and it's not working, because what I saw the most recently that gave me pause. Yeah, that is not where Antarctica was. That's not where it was. That's not where it was. It doesn't even fit if you try to squeeze all the continents together. It don't even fit there. That's not where it was. And then you got to remember how our land masses was formed. It was from volcanoes, doing what volcanoes do. Um, yes, some land masses did crash into each other as things were drifting, shifting. This volcano went off, but this earthquake also went off, and it made some shit happen. So I can see where they're trying to take it, but at the same time, I can see where they're taking it way too far. They're making it way too complicated. They're trying to go back millennia instead of just centuries. Don't don't try to go back before the dinosaurs, because we're all gonna be wrong. We're all gonna be wrong. We all gonna be wrong.
Exactly. And in puzzle pieces, they're not going to exactly fit either way because you have environmental aspects, right? The ocean does whatever the fuck it wants to do. And it's going to take toll on the way that the land masses are shaped. So, yeah, we can clearly see that South America and North America, excuse me, South America and Africa more than likely were connected at one point because it looks like it fits. But not exactly. Not exactly. So,
And we understand that erosion happens, edges change.
mhm,
We all get that. But not to the extent of the puzzle pieces that they're trying to put together. Not to that extent.
mhm, I agree. I definitely agree. So, what you got going on the rest of the day?
Absolutely nothing. I'm gonna go out here and enjoy this breeze that you done sent my way. I don't know why you sent it down here. It was calm. It was wonderful, but I have watched the breeze pick up since you mentioned your breeze up there in your curtains.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna cook me something to eat and get ready for work tomorrow. I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Thank you, Ash.
Oh, he said that terrible word, work. Oh no.
You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta pay
Oh
bills. I want to thank Ash Sunkiss for stopping by. Thank you, NJ for stopping by. I'll be back Wednesday or Thursday when AAA Podcast Sports. If not, catch me here again next Sunday around church time at Faith, Lies, and Confusion. Hopefully, I'll come up with another good topic like this one because I really enjoyed actually doing the study on this one. I'm gonna do more research on Zoroastrianism because it does play a big role in modern religions, in particular Abrahamic religions. Christianity for sure, for sure. So it's interesting to learn new things about new religions and why people are the way that they are. Why do people believe the things that they believe and where they come from? So I'll definitely be back then. Thanks again for stopping by, everybody. Good night.
thanks, ass sun kiss.
Thank you again, Jeff, for stopping by.